Welcome back to Sunday Vibes, one and all. We're back in the pub. Patrick Van Straten has returned from his vacations. How was your holiday, mate?
It was very good. I was in Florence. I had a nice time. Check out my Instagram for updates.
Yeah, you're glowing, mate. You got a little tan on there.
It's hot as fuck. It was 36 degrees like the first couple of days. The baby was cross. And I've lost my voice and I've got an eye infection, so killing it.
Yeah, killing it. How are you?
I'm right, mate. Yeah, not too bad. How are you, though, is the better question.
Terrible. I like some people watching this potentially. Actually, am so hungover. So I was being violently sick.
Why? Why were you hungover?
Well, because I was drinking. What other reason is there?
No, what for? That's what I was gonna say.
Oh, for Max Fosh's 1 million subscriber party. Congratulations, Max. But yeah, I was just being so ill, man. I still can't string a sentence together. So I'm gonna offer very little in this episode, I'd imagine. And if I make a mistake, blame the booze. All right, we're going to be talking today about some transfers. Obviously, it's transfer season. We're going to be playing a game of avoid or sign. So we've got 15 of the biggest transfers in the news at the moment and the fees associated with those players. And then we're each going to say whether we would pay it, whether we wouldn't, blah, blah, blah. We'll have a little discussion about it.
Avoid or sign. It feels like we could do better than that. You know, it could be like sign or swerve or something.
Sign or swerve.
Sign
I
or
like that.
swerve's
Sign
good.
or swerve. We're going to do sign or swerve. I can't remember the name of the person who sent this in on Twitter, so thanks very much to the person who did that. State of me already. We're starting with Darwin Nunez, obviously.
Yeah.
Now, Pat, you've returned from holiday to a €100 million fee, and Liverpool leading the charge.
It doesn't feel very Liverpool, does it? Like, Liverpool have built an attack over the last however long based on picking up guys who were probably slightly undervalued in the market. Like, maybe because they were coming out of Portugal, or maybe because they were coming off a slightly bad year at Wolves, or maybe because they were doing it in a league which then didn't get much respect, like Salah and Serie A. But generally what they did is picked up guys who had rock-solid numbers on sides that were not as good as Liverpool, and could be had for kind of sub 50 mil.
Yeah.
And Diaz was more expensive than the majority of others when they got him in January. I think with add-ons, that could end
Mid-season
up,
as well, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
and with add-ons that could end up being their most expensive, right? But they were competing on four fronts. They knew, I imagine, that they were going to maybe get rid of one of their forwards this summer, or they were open to it. This one feels like a real break from that. It's a lot more money. It's probably the least proven.
Club record fee.
Of all the guys that they're picking up. Yeah, exactly. And people have said, oh, well, you know, Liverpool went and paid top dollar for Alisson or Van Dijk, but those guys were much more solid kind of packages. You knew exactly what you were going to get from them. And they were to fix very specific needs. Whereas here, they need another forward, or they want another forward. Does it have to be like a 22-year-old striker out of the Portuguese league who, positionally, yes, he can play wide, but he's not a real wide man. He's much less positionally versatile than the guys they've targeted in the past, you'd have to say. And it is a huge fee. Like, he now needs to come in and produce big numbers, whereas when someone like Diaz comes in, when you pick up somebody for 40, 45 million, they can have a kind of slower first season. They can come in and out of the squad. Like, it doesn't really matter so much. This is immediately going to put a target on his back. He's going to have to play as a centre forward. If he can't produce against Premier League defenders, he's going to have a really rough first year. And I can't remember the name of the guy, Ward, right? Who's taking over?
Ward,
who's taking over from Michael Edwards. If this were going to be my first summer at Liverpool, taking over from a guy who has had a transformative effect on this club, I'm not sure that my first big move would be €100 million for a striker out of the Portuguese league. That said, I think there's a chance he's a superstar. He looks very, very good. What is it? 26 goals this season. After having really underperformed his attacking numbers in previous campaigns, had more assists than goals, I think, last year or the year before. But looks like he's got all the physical tools you want. Looks like a good dribbler, definitely. Definitely has the pace to kind of offer a threat to Premier League defences. So all the minerals are there, but I guess just for this money, I think, why not Nkunku? Why not somebody else who feels like a safer prospect?
Yeah, it's a lot of money. And last week on Sunday Vibes, we were speaking about Liverpool's looking for a forward, and the fact that they are prioritising a forward. That maybe we felt that was slightly bizarre, given that Henderson is still ageing and they don't really have that right-hand sided central midfielder. They were obviously very interested in Tchouaméni, weren't they? And it almost feels like the Tchouaméni money that they weren't able to spend on him has gone on Darwin Nunez now, which is bizarre because then you're not signing the midfielder you were originally looking to pick up and you're signing a forward. But I don't know. I'm also really mixed on this. I said last week I was unconvinced about Liverpool needing a physical number 9. I think Doogie was linking Tammy Abraham or something like that with him at the time.
Like Origi, essentially.
Yeah, as this sort of...
But Origi's not particularly...
But as this
physical.
sort of like presence in the box, number 9, you know he's going to play through the middle. When I see a lot of Liverpool's best work when the front three are mixing, Salah's coming in inside and Sadio Mane's playing as a 9 and they can mix it together. And I think that's where maybe an Nkunku would have really suited them. And it's going to be interesting to see if Darwin Nunez can do that. Can he operate a little bit wider? I know he has operated as sort of a left forward or a second striker at times in the past, but I think it's a risk. It's a risk. Like you say, it could be a superstar though, but it's a risk.
I think the 100 million price tag is one of the worst things you can do to a footballer. Like, it's so bad. Like, name me the last footballer that moved for 100 million pounds and was really, really successful. Maybe Kylian Mbappe. Like, after that, probably Erling Haaland's going to be all right, but he was not even going to be 100 million.
Well, and players like Grealish, you know, like his first season.
He's going and I actually think Grealish in time
general,
will
I agree.
make it out.
Excessive fees
Like,
don't tend to work out
Look at
well.
Romelu Lukaku, right? And so much pressure was put onto Lukaku this season with Chelsea, and that didn't work out. I think he'll be okay in terms of, like, they don't need Nunez to bang straight away. Like, they've already got a fantastic front three. They could start tomorrow, Jota, Diaz and Salah, and be absolutely fine. So they don't have that pressure. But to put a £100 million price tag onto him, it is very unlike Liverpool, and just, as you mentioned, not necessarily the position that's desperately needed.
Yeah, I suppose they are kind of counteracting that, though. In their defence, Liverpool are probably saying, look, we are going to need a forward because Origi's gone. It looks like Minamino is going to go. Mane is going to go to Bayern. So if they lose 3 forwards, they're going to need a forward to come in the door because they've already got Carvalho.
They still have Harvey Elliott as well, who can play in an attacking forward position. Carvalho's coming in. Okay, he's not going to be starting. I probably would have ideally sent him on loan as well to a Premier League team to get him experience. But look, you're going into next season. If you need him to keep him there, I think that's not an issue. He's only 18. So I can understand. But then you would think Liverpool, with the way they've normally done their business, would then go maybe buy 2 forwards for, say, 30 million each or whatever, not the 100 million euros for.
And you have still got guys like Firmino, you know. And I don't know. I guess I think as well, like when I hear people talking about a physical forward, so often they just mean a tall forward. Like there are plenty of forwards who are tall but not physical. Like Aubameyang is a tall player; he's not physical at all. Whereas I would actually say that someone like Salah or Diaz, they are really physical. Like Salah's lower body strength is phenomenal.
Sadio Mane.
Mane, exactly.
Extremely physical.
And these guys, you know, like you can be physical, you can be a problem. Like Diogo Jota is a physical problem for defenders because of his strength and his incredible leap. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to get a guy who's just like a big, tall bloke. Like,
although Darwin Nunez's defence is very, like, does fit the Sadio Mane mould of an absolute,
workhorse,
like an absolute dog off the ball as well. So the other thing I will say as well is, like, I know that we say it doesn't fit the Liverpool mold, but Liverpool don't get many wrong. Like, I can't really remember the last time they
the
got
best
wrong.
reason to believe he's going to be great is that Liverpool are targeting.
Oh yeah, exactly. But they also have a lot of leeway as well, right? Like, the leeway is okay, but if so, for instance, Naby Keita, right, not turned out to be the star we all thought he was going to be, but he didn't cost them stupid amounts of money. Like, they can take that, and as you said, they've got the successes of other things. Like, if they buy Nunez for,
and it's a very structured system he's slotting into.
Yeah, I think he comes in, he'll be absolutely fine. Like, I don't know, like, he's got time to do whatever. But it's just like, is it needed right now? Probably.
All right, so 100 million euros, sign or swerve.
I personally would swerve and go and get a midfielder, but I can understand, like, maybe why they do it for sure.
Sign or swerve.
Yeah, swerve. Not because he's not good, and
yeah.
not because he's not gonna be good. I just think this money could be spent better, especially in midfield, like you said. Like, go if you miss out on your midfield target, you're not like, guess we better buy a striker.
Like, looking at
weird.
Well, how much is Bellingham going to cost you next year? Like, if you spend 100 million euros on
they must have an idea of another midfielder.
If you got 100 mil, like test West Ham.
with Declan Rice to Liverpool.
Yeah, test West Ham.
Great. I mean, it wouldn't be great, but it would be fun to watch.
Frenkie De Jong. How much is Frenkie De Jong going to go for?
I think, not as much as people think potentially if it does happen. I would. Oh, I'm on the fence. I'm very much on the fence.
It's difficult, isn't it?
I would probably sign, but maybe the fee just is slightly too high. Next one up, then we got Sangare to United.
You better take this one, man. Come on. We've
You need a DM.
We've been talking about this geezer for a long time.
We have been talking about him, and obviously he is a very good player. But I think there are a couple buts about him.
Sure.
I think the 35 million euros. I think the fee's not astronomical. That's the release clause that's being quoted, by the way. I do think he is in the mould of the player we need. United need a defensive midfielder, and at 35 million euros, I wouldn't be adverse to it. I think he's a good player, but is he that? Do you know what I mean? That X Factor 6 that we need, the X Factor DM that really comes in.
Do you need an X Factor DM? What do you mean by that?
Like, I mean,
Don't you
somebody
just need
who's
someone
an
who's just, like,
absolute
crunch
monster,
people?
an absolute, and just, Sangare might come in and be that guy. Like, I think it would be a good signing. It would be a good signing to get Sangare through the door at 35 million euros, but I don't know. Can he translate the form we've seen in Liga and Eredivisie to the Premier League is one worry for me. And secondly, he's extremely immobile. Like, he's a big old unit.
But if you've got, the dream world, right, is you get Frenkie in as well, and he's the guy that's sitting next
Frenkie
to
needs a
him
partner,
and
doesn't it? But it just seems like
which
muddled
would be
thinking
very
for
good,
me.
yeah.
United are supposedly, reportedly interested in a player like N'Golo Kante, and then they're also interested in a player like Sangare. I don't think the two
are similar.
Are as similar as
Not in the way they're going to play, but I think Zach's right. Like, De Jong gives you a lot of leeway here. Like, De Jong's mobility, and De Jong, at his best, just put up kind of 4.5 tackles and interceptions a game. That's a lot for a guy playing box to box.
And when he plays in the Netherlands, he plays a lot more deep. He plays like almost as a 6.
And if you've got him, and I think you're going to have a more coherent system, and you've got Sangare there, then I actually think that you're kind of okay. Like, he might be slow, but I think that there are defensive midfielders who can be pretty slow and still be good enough. He's not slow, but Rodri isn't particularly fast. Like, these players are capable of doing it in the right system, and I do think that Ten Hag he's going to have seen Sangare quite a lot.
Yeah.
So I think he's going to have an understanding of what he's going to get out of him. And let's bear in mind, actually, that the Premier League is a fast-paced league, but when people say it's the fastest league in the world, it isn't. It's the most challenging league in the world. But actually, the Eredivisie can be really, really fast because everyone's about 22. Yeah. So, like, if Sangare can manage there pace-wise, then he can probably manage in the Prem pace-wise.
I do have reservations about signing players like the Eredivisie, but I remember when we were looking at Sangare at Toulouse, when he was in Ligue 1, putting up pretty immense defensive numbers, and when he went to PSV, we were like, how the hell have PSV got him? So I do think that kind of caveats the Eredivisie attacks, because there's not been that many good players come out of the Eredivisie to the Prem recently.
It's also a very un-Manchester United signing.
Yeah,
like,
I don't see it
if he went to another club or whatever, whether it was a Leicester or whether it was like that gateway club, and then United bought him, you'd be a bit more understandable. But it's very out of United's thinking. But maybe that's what you need.
Yes,
right. For ages we've sat there and gone, I keep signing these stars, and it goes wrong. Like, look at Pogba, right? And so maybe what you need is signing someone who's a little bit more unknown, who's someone who can test himself and has a bit more to prove. And also isn't costing you billions of pounds.
I agree.
Like, it's
all
a
the
relatively
good
good
teams
fee.
have these guys, right?
Yeah.
Like Liverpool this season, like, their best centre back was Matip.
And at worst.
And like people like Origi, like you defend it, I don't particularly like him, but like guys like that and Minamino, like, or Nathan Ake, like, they overpaid for him, but like these people do get reasonable minutes and they give you some use. So like if Sangare comes in and does a simple role to a reasonably good standard, these are actually the kinds of signings that actually Ferguson used to make.
Yeah.
Ferguson lived in a much easier world transfer wise.
Yeah.
Like 10 years ago, Ferguson would have called West Ham and been like, give us Declan Rice, and they'd have given them to you for a really reasonable price. Like, now you can't really do that, but United definitely need to pad the squad out with some reliable performers who do not cost the earth.
Especially with the amount of midfielders that have vacated Manchester United this summer. Like, when you think about Matic going, Mata, Pogba, Lingard, like, Andres Pereira is going to go as well. Obviously, these players haven't put up huge numbers, but when you combine them, still you're looking at maybe 30 appearances across the course of the season that have got to be filled. So, are we saying sign or swerve?
I think sign, man. At very worst, he becomes a decent
totally
squad
agree.
player. Like, at very worst.
Yeah, I agree. Pat, we haven't heard your thoughts on the Frenkie De Jong move. Yeah,
I mean,
you've been away.
I don't know how much it'll be, but obviously
I think it's about. I think it's supposed to reach up to about 80 million euros with like 60 million euros fixed.
I mean, that's fine to me. Like, you were talking about spending more than 100 million for Declan Rice. Like, Frenkie De Jong, I think is very clearly, like, at least as good, probably better than Declan Rice at this stage. It depends what you're going to pay him in wages, but realistically, like United should not be able to get him. You shouldn't be able to get him.
Yeah.
It's a unique blend of circumstances, like Barcelona wanting to get him and you having hired like his previous boss. So definitely go and get him, and he will solve an awful lot of problems for you. If you've got Frenkie De Jong and Bruno in your midfield too, then getting that third member becomes so much easier immediately.
Yeah.
And suddenly I look at it and I think, fucking hell, like this is a path to a good 11. Like it really is.
So we're all signing on Frenkie as well?
Of course.
80 million euros? Okay.
100%.
The next one then. Pogba to Juve.
Yeah,
Looks like this one's going to happen, doesn't it? €8 million deal for 3 years.
It's got to a point with Pogba now where I just don't care.
I'm kind of in agreement.
I love Pogba, and when he was originally at Juve, like he was this exciting player. And to be honest, his early days at United, he still was. But the Pogba saga has gone on now for so long about whether he's going to be amazing. Then we saw him at the 2018 World Cup, and he was amazing alongside N'Golo Kante. But then it goes back to Manchester United. In the past, 4 years now, it's just got so boring. And like the beef that he's had with whether it was Mourinho, whether it was the club, like it just continued on. And look, he'll go to Juve. He'll probably be pretty good. But like the Pogba career of what could have been just feels like it's been wasted. Yeah. Like it really, really does. And he'll be fine.
I think people forget like just how many injury problems and like games he's missed at United. He's only played 30 games in a Premier League season once at United since he's been there, which is just like carnage for a player of his quality. And across the course of the last 3 seasons, I think only once he's put up 20 Premier League appearances. I think it's on like 16, 13, 20 appearances in the league. Like it's all well and good saying that he is a mustard player, and obviously he is amazing. You know, he still puts up huge chance creation numbers, still an extremely good dribbler and progressive player. But you've got to get him on the pitch. The number one asset for a player is availability, and he's very rarely available. So like I also find it a bit like boring that he's gone back to Juve. Like if I was Pogba, I'd be thinking, right, what's the next challenge? A new challenge, fresh start. Is it PSG where they're building this project and Zidane might come in? Is it like Madrid? And he's gone back to Juve.
Well, you said to me,
it's safe,
it might have been yes. I can't remember when you said it to me. You said it to me recently that it says a lot that Real Madrid were desperate for a midfielder or looking for midfielders.
And done 100 mil on Tchouaméni rather than free for Paul Pogba.
But I think I don't know, man. Like I think
it's boring though, isn't it? It's a safe move.
It's boring for us, but I think you've got to take into account what these last few years have been like for Pogba. Like, okay, you're hungover today.
Yeah.
If I offer you a range of lunch choices and I offer you something really exciting or something that you know and that is reliable, you're going to go for the thing that's reliable because you've had a difficult 24 hours. Like, same thing with Pogba. Pogba has talked about how he's found these last few years like really draining and difficult mentally. I think in that situation, it's not particularly surprising that he might look for some kind of security and want to go back somewhere where he knows he's loved, where he's playing under a manager he knows, where he's playing with a few players that he knows.
Oh God,
I was going to say where he speaks the language, but to be honest, I mean, he speaks Spanish and French and English and Italian, so it's not really an issue for him. But I can kind of understand it. Like, I wouldn't go to PSG in that situation because I'd be like, this is such a toxic club. Like, I don't want to walk into like the Chernobyl of football clubs. I can have a miserable time. Like, I would probably go somewhere where I think, at the very least, I'm going to be appreciated. However,
Man City, you reject the Man City contract as well.
Yeah, as a fact, but then you're in a city where everyone hates you, and everyone's hated you for years. They hate you even more.
But then go and win the Premier League.
You've got to deal with like certain pundits, like who do seem to have an agenda against you for quite obvious reasons. Yeah. I don't know. Like, obviously, from the point of view of seeing the best of Pogba, seeing Pogba develop, like you say, still an amazing ball progressor, still an amazing chance creator. Yeah. And I look at other teams in the Premier League and I think there's a place for him, like definitely City in that Gundogan role. Definitely, you know, somebody said to me Arsenal the other day in the Xhaka role. Arsenal couldn't afford him, but you could see it. That'd be really fun. Spurs have been talking about like getting in like Eriksen to play behind the forwards. Imagine Pogba in that position, like under Conte, who really like developed him as a player. That would be amazing. That'd be so exciting. So yes, there are lots of options that would give us more of a chance of seeing what Pogba could have been. And yes, that would be much more interesting for us to talk about because frankly, Juventus at this point just buy players to ruin them. You know, like, do you remember how excited we were about Locatelli? No one cares now. Do you remember how excited people were about Vlahovic? No one cares now. And they're already linked with other forward options. So I don't really want to see him at Juventus, but from
his perspective, you understand it.
I get it.
So we're signing or swerving Pogba on a free €8 million contract.
Sure, sign. Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
sign, whatever.
Yeah, sign if you can do it. If you've
From
I
get it.
Juventus'
From Juventus'
point
point of view, I get it.
Paul's is just
100%.
boring, innit? Next one then we've got is Rafinha. Rafinha to Barcelona. Now the reported fee here is quite large. Leeds want upwards of £60 million. Obviously, there was the relegation release clause if they'd have gone down at €25 million. So I think Barca are probably pretty gutted that didn't happen. And they are in advanced talks with Deco, who's his agent. What do we think about Rafinha to Barca? For me, I just don't get what Barca are doing. Again, I don't get it at all on any level. The whole Barcelona summer situation, I don't understand it at all.
I just don't. Yeah, the whole financial situation, I don't understand why they're focusing on signings.
They're going to sell. They're 500 million in debt. They're going to sell Frenkie De Jong for €80 million, and what? They're going to do 80 million euros on Rafinha. And then try and get Lewandowski through the door. They've already got Kessie and Christensen. They can't register Kessie and Christensen. So what are they doing? What are they doing? They've already got a striker who scores goals in Aubameyang. Why do they need Lewandowski?
Every year, like for the past 2-3 years now, we sit there and we just say Barcelona are a mess in every single way. Like their thinking doesn't make sense. Like they're constantly trying to be this club that is making exciting signings and interesting signings and keeping their fans pleased. But they're a club that lost the greatest player to have played football last year. Like they're a club that are trying, as you mentioned, to buy a striker who is probably one of the best in the world, and they can't do it. Like they're physically absolutely screwed financially. And yet you see them linking to these guys. It doesn't make sense in any way, shape or form. Like they've got to be figuring it out in some. They've got to sit there and go, right now we are fucked. Like we need to sort out this financial situation. We need to figure it out, because every year it seems to be like last year they get this bank loan that apparently what's fixing it. Like they're going to be fine from then on out. A year later they're back in the same situation. Like they've got no money and they're selling their best stars. Like the squad's getting worse. They can't even be thinking about making it better.
Yeah. I don't understand. Like the forward area at Barcelona to add an €80 million right winger right now is not. is
And Rafinha is also a good, like he's a good player. Yeah, great player. But he's also not desperately needed right now. Like he's not needed on the wing. Like they've got Aubameyang who can feature out on the wing if needed. They've still got Ansu Fati who, fitness-wise is still sketchy. Like it, but they've got Memphis Depay who can also. Again, he's more through the middle, but can play in the wing as well. They've got players that they can do there.
Torres.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I literally forgot about Ferran Torres.
They've done 50 mil on Ferran Torres.
Another right winger. Ago. They had Adama Traore on loan. Barely played him. He was quite.
He was all right when he played though.
Yeah, well, to a degree. But they don't need Rafinha right now. Like what they need to do is figure out this financial mess.
Yeah.
Like they've got all these, as you said, Christensen can't even join. He's meant to be signing a contract about 6 months ago.
I love Rafinha. Like I think for the right club, he'll be an excellent player. But for me, this is a swerve all day long at like €70 million.
It's the wrong focus. It's the wrong focus. I'm definitely swerving.
Yeah. Next one we've got is Gabby Jesus to Tottenham. Now this is an interesting one because obviously Arsenal have been in advanced talks for a long old time, haven't they? Man City want a fee of about €50 million. Pat, you've been on holiday, so you've not really seen this. What's your immediate reaction to Gabby Jesus to Tottenham?
If Tottenham can do it, they definitely should. Like, I mean, as a kind of rotating front line, to have the options of Son, Kane, Kulusevski and Jesus is pretty phenomenal, and it means that when Kane, fair point, when Kane inevitably gets injured, which he probably will this season, this is going to be a really good option for them. I don't really understand why he would be offered to Tottenham. That doesn't really make sense. This sounds like bull.
It sounds a little bit like the agent trying to drum up a bit more money for the player and a bit more interest in the player.
From Jesus' point of view, though, I don't quite get it. Like, you're going from... I mean, to be fair, actually, towards the end of the season, he was starting quite a decent amount for City. But he's going from a guy who's going to be a bench option this season with Haaland coming in, Alvarez as well, depending what they do for him, to moving to Spurs and being a bench option again. Like, at least with Arsenal, you've got a developing project.
Guaranteed 9 at Arsenal.
You've also,
guaranteed minutes.
Yeah, literally. Also, I've seen him linked to Real Madrid as well. Like, there has been rumours about Chelsea too. Like, these are clubs where you might actually get a lot more minutes than you would at Spurs. And also, like, I think with Spurs, it's much more difficult to... If I was moving there, I don't know how long Conte is going to be there for. Like, this project and how long that's going to happen. Like, he might have another season and not enjoy what's happened and move on. Then you've got a whole other kind of guy there.
But then you do have the fallback of, it might only be for a season potentially, but you are going to be in the Champions League. Conte,
I think that's massively overplayed. We talk about it every year about like people playing in the Champions League and like players are desperate to play in the Champions League. I think players that haven't played in the Champions League are desperate to play in it. But actually, I think over the last few years, what we've seen, particularly with Arsenal and Man United signings, is that players don't mind that much. Like, what they want is to play regularly and get paid a lot of money. And I think that, you know, like we're talking about Frenkie De Jong going to Man United. You know, Arsenal have bought huge players over the last few years who have actually ditched big projects and chances to win major trophies to come to Arsenal. Like Pepe could have probably gone to anywhere. Came to Arsenal. Thomas Partey came to Arsenal. Odegaard came to Arsenal. Even Aubameyang came to Arsenal, you know, when we didn't have Champions League football. So did Lacazette for that matter. And Ben White. Like, so I think that there are players who are kind of like really keen to play in the Champions League. You know, guys like Declan Rice probably. And then there are guys who actually are kind of okay about it. So if he wants to go there and play Champions League this season, then obviously he should pick Tottenham over Arsenal. I'm working with Conte as well. But yeah, if he wants regular minutes and to get paid a big wage, then probably Arsenal.
Yeah, and also,
but if Tottenham can do this, they absolutely should do it, even just to fuck over Arsenal.
Yeah, and also don't forget the fact that he has worked with Arteta before at Manchester City. I'm sure that has some level of pull for him, especially if they had a good relationship. I agree. If Tottenham, this is a definite sign. But if I was the player, it would be a swerve. I would be going to Arsenal. If the two clubs were on the table and I had Tottenham and
same
amount
of money, same.
And I was guaranteed the number 9 at Arsenal in that project, I think I would take that.
Really?
I think I would take it. I love Tottenham's front three as it is. Like Kulusevski, Son, Kane, to come in and expect to disrupt that when Kulusevski is going at over like a goal involvement every 90 minutes at the moment since he signed for the club. I don't see it as being realistic.
It's so silly.
I guess it's mental. I guess there is a lot of. They've got a lot of game Spurs next season.
Yeah, of course.
With being in the Champions League, domestic, like there will be minutes available, but you are right. Like it's nowhere nearly that minutes that Arsenal are going to.
And also, you, like you say, you make a really good point of. I think that at Arsenal, when you get that number 9 shirt, even if it doesn't work for maybe a couple of years, Conte will be gone by the time. Like you're still progressing for Arsenal. I'm not sure how long he's going to stay there. Like I think that this feels like there's also been linked to Real Madrid, isn't he? But they've got too many non-EU players in the squad as it is, so I don't think it's possible.
Plus, you know who doesn't rotate? Antonio Conte.
Yes,
Antonio Conte doesn't rotate. Like when he won the league with Chelsea, like he tends to have a core of like 14 guys that he really trusts. And don't get me wrong, like Gabby Jesus is good enough that he would get those minutes. But at Arsenal, you're competing for the left wing slot. Like Jesus has played obviously wide or through the middle. You're competing for the forward slot currently with no one. Like there's nobody there, though it looks like Nketiah will be re-signed maybe, but that slot is available. If you want to play on the left wing, you're competing with Martinelli and Smith Rowe. If you want to play on the right, like Saka's going to need to be rested, and then there's nothing below that because Pepe will probably be sold if they can sell him. So you're getting in the attack some way. You know, at Spurs, if everyone's fit, don't know.
Yeah, the next one then we've got is we're just going to briefly mention this one because it looks like it is a done deal. I don't know whether it's been announced yet or not, but Tchouaméni to Real Madrid, Pat, 100 million euros, thoughts?
It's very, very, very expensive, but he is probably the best young midfielder on the market. They haven't really spent that much over the last few years.
Yeah, I think they made a profit.
They're saving up for Mbappe, weren't they?
Yeah, so I mean, why not? Like, go ahead and do it. And I think that actually the sensible thing for them, it's going to be a while before they can get Mbappe.
But they are building a very French young team. They've got Mendy at left back. They've now got Camavinga and Tchouaméni in midfield. Like they've already got Karim Benzema, who's very, very good mates with Mbappe. Like it seems like just kind of getting all of his young mates for the French.
But you're not going to get Mbappe now for what, 3 years
3
minimum?
years,
But the sensible thing, okay, like look, they probably do need to go and get another forward in this situation. But I like that their reaction to it isn't like, okay, we can't get Mbappe, so let's just spunk an equal amount of money on like the next best thing.
Darwin.
You know, like I like that they're kind of like, well, we actually do need to do surgery to the rest of the squad. So like, let's reallocate our resources. I really like Tchouaméni. I think it's exactly what they need. They need some other things as well.
Yeah, another forward, definitely a left back probably.
But if they got Tchouaméni and then
Right
we're
back.
like, okay, who's available? Who would be an interesting forward for us to maybe play off the right, and maybe went for a slightly more left field move. I think that this is really sensible stuff, and for a long time they've needed to get sensible.
Yeah, imagine they went out and got like a Rafinha. They went just alright, Barca, you want it? Come on, boy, come over to the dark side. The next one, we go into Inter Milan. Lukaku and Dybala. We'll do this as a double act because.
How do you feel
they're
about
both in
this?
talks.
The Hunter.
Rom, the Hunter.
Off we go.
The Hunter is into the distance, mate.
Yeah, I mean, probably about a year ago, we were sat maybe in a different pub, but here's talking about how Lukaku's going to change everything for Chelsea. And a year on, it's obviously not gone anywhere near.
It's very funny.
It's arguably the worst transfer in Premier League history. Like, to be honest, 100 million pounds.
There's no argument.
Like,
It is.
Yeah, I mean,
100 million quid, and
he scored
less than a season.
How many goals did he score in the end?
Eight Premier League goals.
Here you go, yeah, and it's a shame. Like, it's a real shame. Like, the story was amazing. This guy, the guy come in, his dream club, blah blah blah. I've said it a million times. There's no point saying it again. But I think it's been an unfortunate. Because I also won't put the blame 100% at Lukaku. I think there's been a mix of like Chelsea have bought a striker. And every time, and have used him as a target man, and he's not a target man. Like, this is a guy that runs in behind. I've watched him a few times this season, and like the first half, watching Lukaku, like he'll make these runs, and no one's attempting to find him, and you just see him get frustrated, and he just goes, "Okay, well, I'm not."
But then why did they sign him?
Look, I think it was a thing
We
where
knew this about Lukaku.
Chelsea-
That's how he's played his entire career.
Well, Chelsea's first target was Haaland last summer. They obviously couldn't get Haaland. I think they went to, I can't remember the price, but they went over to the release clause for this year, and Dortmund said they weren't going to sell him. And so then they went kind of like what you explained Real Madrid's situation. They went, okay, what's the next best thing? Romelu Lukaku's just had a fantastic season. Used to play for Chelsea.
And he did have a great season.
And he did.
We all thought he'd do
a really good season. He's obviously not helped himself in terms of, you know, interviews and stuff like that. But it's kind of gone tits up, and so Inter Milan looking at him, like Inter Milan must have been laughing, right? They must be absolutely laughing at it.
Do you not just hold on to him? Like, do you not just hold on?
It's
to
not
him
over. This is it. Like, it's not over. I think Petr Cech came out yesterday and said, or Wednesday, and said, like, we're still trying to look to make things work. Like, we're still very much like keen on keeping him here. I mean, he's always going to say that. No one's ever going to come out.
It feels
and
like a loan. It's like, what is it?
It all depends on the money side of things. Like Chelsea, Inter Milan are just having a laugh here. They basically sent a guy on loan and probably going to make a profit of about 80, 60, 70 million euros. It's ridiculous. But I think the other thing that we need to be careful with here is like Chelsea need to make sure this works like for the squad next season, right? If they've got another guy, if they have another season with Lukaku up top and it's still not flowing, it's still not working, and Kai Havertz is just sitting on the bench, a guy who probably should be playing in that position otherwise, then you do need to maybe let Lukaku go on loan where he can also enjoy himself and play well for Inter Milan, and do right. But then also like I go, well, if they're going to bring in Dybala, they're going to keep Lautaro Martinez.
I know,
are they going to then? And then I don't quite understand how it's going to work out unless they're playing like a 3 or like a 2 up top with Dybala sitting a little bit behind them, playing a bit more of a midfield role.
What do you reckon, Pat?
I don't quite understand how it'd work out.
But they've got Champions League football. They've got a lot of minutes
True.
to absorb.
True.
You know, and again, like I think
to get Dybala and Lukaku for £0.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Oh, from Inter Milan's point of view, like you give me this offer here, I snap your hand off. Again, I don't know that. I can't remember the fees so much.
Surely there's going to be loan fees involved.
Oh no, so I think Chelsea's loan fee at one point I read was €20 million loan fee. 20 million, and then there's like an option or an obligation to buy.
Yeah.
But I don't know what that would be. So yeah, I mean that's where it is with.
Sign or swerve then for these two. What do you think?
You signed Dybala, definitely.
Yeah.
So on a free.
On a free.
Okay.
Depending on the fees and because I got
it wasn't because he crushed Syria.
But it wasn't that long ago as well when Inter Milan was screwed by like financial situations. So I don't quite know personally on their current status of financial.
Well, let's say
it's fine.
It's a sign. It's a sign. Surely Lukaku and Dybala's are nailed on the sign.
If there's an obligation to buy, I don't do it.
You swear?
Yeah. If there's no obligation to buy, I do it.
Even though he crushed it at Inter.
And I don't care. I'd be like, Dybala and Martinez is good enough. And to be honest, they were actually the best side in Serie A this season. They're the best underlying numbers. They're the best attack, the best defence, pretty much. Like they were better than AC Milan this season. And AC Milan they were clutch and got it over the line, great. But I'd probably run it back. I think let's just put Dybala in and see what happens because they damn near won the title. With Dzeko and Martinez,
and also the relationship between Lukaku and Inter. I don't know. Like the fans don't like him.
Yeah,
he ruined it. Yeah, he it's the worst thing that could have possibly happened for him. Chelsea fans don't like him. Inter fans don't like him. Like it's absolutely screwed over.
Is horrible,
man. I do feel a bit sorry for him.
I feel sorry for him as well. Like this is a guy on his day. He's great. Like, but it's just not working.
If I was Chelsea, I would just keep him in the squad.
He's the architect of all of this. If he'd stayed there and kept his mouth shut and had just been like, look, you know, like if in his interviews he'd just done like the bullshit like, you know, taking every day as it comes, like just working to like stay in the manager's like thoughts.
The pressure would have been more on Tuchel.
You know, and I'm open to like getting in the team however.
This is the
exactly.
This is the first time.
But
as
instead
well.
now everyone's just like on Tuchel's side, and they're just like
Say,
Lukaku's been a dick, and he has, because he's like coming out like doing his like fake I'm like from New York talk.
I think
like, shut up, man.
I think the big thing as well is the Bowley situation. Like, how do they? Like, I don't quite know how it works if they come into the club, and do they view it as that's their money that they've spent on Lukaku,
No,
or I don't know how they view that, which
that's
can make a bit of.
Well, the fee is going to be
interesting.
amortized, right? Like, over, so it will be money.
Well, this is it. So we've not paid, and that's the other thing.
Yeah,
how much have we already
upfront.
sent to Inter Milan, like all that kind of stuff.
But
But
then
overall, I signed a Barla. I signed Lukaku.
Same. And your sign and the Swerve.
Sign as well.
All right. The next one, Richarlison to PSG.
Swerve. For now, Swerve.
I think
for sure.
the PSG situation is going to be really interesting this summer. I was reading the Athletic article on the way in, and they were talking about being very open to selling Neymar. Like, obviously, Luis Campos is coming in as a football advisor. It looks like by the time it goes out, maybe Poch has officially been sacked.
Yeah.
Like, I have to say, I think the way that's been dealt with is pretty awful. That has been like a very slow process, very public, that he's been being booted out of the club. Must be pretty awful to be Pochettino right now. But
they're not really doing too much wrong either. We're not really doing too much wrong. It's just Mbappe doesn't like me.
just didn't get over the line in the Champions League either, did he? And also
that is the seller.
failed to win the league in his first season there. But I mean, it's they do they? I suppose if they get rid of Neymar, do they just add Richarlison as a dog and go, okay, look, Mbappe and Messi are going to work off the ball. Richarlison, all he does is press
Can they shift Neymar though?
hard. Isn't it?
They've got to take a cut. They've got to take a big loss on Neymar.
Yeah, but that's
obviously.
Yeah, but maybe you do that because you're like, the whole point of this was to like win the Champions League and like and to basically like have a good reputation in Europe. And it's like PSG are a laughing stock, despite having had an unbelievable window last summer, despite having signed the best player of all time and at the time probably the third best player in the world.
Yeah.
Now they've got the two best players in the world like at the club, and like they're still.
I think the thing with Neymar,
It's
though,
embarrassing. And signing Luis and getting in Luis Campos, like Luis Campos is amazing at his job, but signing him as an advisor, you're making it very clear that you're not signing him as a director of football. So
That's
like, what is
Mbappe.
that? So when you get in an advisor, yeah, exactly. So when you get in an advisor, like, what are you doing? Like, how much power do they have? It's like United bringing in Rangnick. It's like what you're very specifically saying.
amazing, yeah.
People are like, oh, like. Look at him. He's got so much expertise, but you're very clearly not saying he has the power to do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
If they got in Luis Campos and they said he's got the power to do what he wants, but they can't do that because they don't know who their manager's going to be, because they don't know if Zidane's going to say yes. And if it's not Zidane, then what are they going to do? Apparently Mourinho's on the list. Apparently Conte is Conte says he's definitely going to stay at Spurs, but I still reckon that he'd have a nibble if PSG were like, oh, here you go, like chance to work with Messi. I don't
here's all
know,
this
man.
money.
Galtier would be great, but Galtier's going to be like, this is a disaster. Like, you know, Galtier is not taking this job, and to be honest, if I were living in Nice, it would take me a lot to get me to move. Like, it's, I don't know. You'd say I need the power to bench all these fucking guys.
It's just not going to happen.
This squad's a state. They need midfielders. If they end up stuck with that front line, I agree. Like, getting in someone like Richarlison, like I'm looking at him here, he's in the top 8% of forwards for pressures. He's in the top 5% for tackles, the top 7% for interceptions. That is what I want. Like, I want a guy out there with like a bulletproof vest who's just like running into people, just
he's
taking hits left.
He really is.
But it would cost a lot to get out of Everton. It's
Yeah,
not
exactly.
going to
It's
be
gonna
cheap.
cost
They
a
signed
lot.
him for 50 mil.
And Everton rejected. What was the offer from Barcelona? 80 million euros.
But was that true?
Something
That was
like
such
You
a
can
couple of years ago.
you can get a dog for less money than this, you know.
Yeah.
Like for that
Greyhounds.
money, like even these guys wouldn't be dogs, but for this money, you might be able to get Rashford off Man United. You might be able to get like Sterling off Man City. Like Pulisic might be on his way out of Chelsea. Like, there are guys who you can get who will work harder than your current forwards for less money than this.
So Swerve for me.
Swerve Richarlison, yeah, and also I just don't know who's buying Neymar. Like, all that kind of stuff links in. Like,
Offer that money for Martinelli, genuinely. Like, Martinelli, I think, is like, his underlying numbers are just as good, and he's a hard worker.
Yeah.
And Richarlison, I really love Richarlison, but at his age, he's now not going to be a superstar. I don't think it's less likely to happen, right? Whereas, like, you could get some young players, or you know what you could do? you're in a city that produces more young footballers than any other in Europe. You've got a phenomenal academy, and I would probably look at the guys who we've lost over the last few years. I'd be like, oh yeah, remember when we lost Diaby? Remember when we lost Nkunku?
Yeah.
Like, maybe we should keep some of those guys and give them a chance, because actually those are going to be the money spinners for you, and those are the guys who potentially are going to help build your relationship with the city. Because actually PSG has never really made a great effort to do that. Whereas you look at like Man City's work, one of the reasons that Man City have been able to sport wash so effectively is because they have actually invested a lot in like the academy and in the community. PSG need to go and do that, and then they can actually like start to say, we have a relationship with the city in the way that Barcelona do with Barcelona, in the way that Man United do with Manchester, the way that Chelsea do with wherever they are, you know, like somewhere in Surrey, I think. Like, that you could actually do that. So I just think, I don't know, it's disappointing.
All right, so we're all swerves on Richarlison. Let's do Kalvin Phillips to Man City.
Ooh, I mean, this
and this isn't going to be cheap. This isn't going to be cheap, by the way. Some of the fees that are being reported are upwards of £50 million here.
It's a lot of money for a guy who isn't going to be starting. Realistically, like, he's not going to get in over Rodri, like, and he's not getting in over that guy called Kevin De Bruyne. Like, it's just not going to happen. And so, but they do need, obviously, with Fernandinho leaving, who obviously as well played at the back when needed, and they did get a lot of injuries, to be fair, in defence. So someone like Kalvin Phillips is. It's a lot of money for basically a bench option. And don't get me wrong, and he's also a player that shouldn't be a bench option. Like, he's a guy that should be starting week in, week out for a good Premier League side. Like, he was linked to Manchester United several times. Like, and he's still relatively young. I think he's 26 years old. Like, he's got a fantastic career ahead of him. And I think it'd be a waste for himself. Well, I guess it depends if he's just in it for the money, but it'd be a waste for himself just to sit there.
You go to City, you're winning titles.
For sure, but then I don't know how.
But
how comfortable do you feel if you're only playing, say, if you're starting maybe 15 games in the Prem?
This is the story of Jack Grealish. Jack Grealish didn't put up huge minutes in his first season.
But Jack Grealish has the future of, like, he can be the guy that starts week in, week out for City. Like, Rodri's still like the same. Like, how old was Rodri?
This is an Ake signing, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's an Ake signing, and if you're accepting that, which is and I can understand why you do it, but like I maybe
I also don't think it's like it's not necessarily the most aligned fit. I'm not sure about the best version of Kalvin Phillips for me is when he sits really deep and he sprays the passes across and he breaks things up. It's like he's almost like a hybrid mix of a Fernandinho and Rodri, isn't he? Where Rodri dictates the tempo of the game and Fernandinho is a little bit more of a destroyer, demolition man. But where does that fit into Man City? I can't imagine Kalvin Phillips being the lone DM with Bernardo Silva and KDB alongside him. I think that, I don't know. To me, that doesn't quite work. I don't know whether he's got the passing ability to do that in the short tempo passing. If you look at his underlying numbers, like pass completion wise and progressive pass numbers, they're not.
But if there's one manager that's going incredible to get it out of you, and and improve you and make you fit into that system, like, it's going to be Pep Guardiola.
Yeah, but it's a big fee for somebody who you're like, we think we can make this guy the guy.
At 26 as well.
Yeah, exactly. I think everyone rates Kalvin Phillips here, and you can definitely see, you know, what he could do here. Like, the fact he can kind of cover at full back. He's got huge defensive numbers, huge pressing numbers, great engine, good long passing, but yeah, it's just not. It just doesn't quite compute. Surely you want, in this position, you want someone who can either play in place of Rodri or with Rodri.
Yeah.
Well, he can play instead of Rodri, but why would you play him alongside him? Like, I don't really get how that makes you better, unless you truly are going to be like, we are going to play 4-2-4, and the attackers just do what they want.
It's a position.
Or he was 21 and could learn from Rodri. And phase in, phase out. It's
like, why are they not going for De Jong here?
I mean, this is what I don't understand in general. I don't understand how every club has a
starting place, though, wouldn't he? De Jong would 100% want a starting spot.
But he could also play alongside him, no? Like, you could play him alongside
Rodri and De Jong would be absolutely vile, wouldn't it?
It's blown my mind with De Jong that not more people aren't. More people aren't going in for him. I will say, though, it is a position that City are looking at. Like, City have also been interested and like tested and found out about Declan Rice as well. So they are thinking about this like DM position and the future.
They're actively trying to sign more English players at the moment, aren't they? Clearly, given that Jack Grealish was targeted heavily last year, Declan Rice, Harry Kane, Kalvin Phillips now, like. For me, at the fee quoted, I think it would be a swerve. But I still think he's a fabulous player, Kalvin Phillips.
Yeah, it's just not quite right.
50 million. Swerve it. Why not? I think I said sign earlier.
Next one, then we've got Pau Torres going back to Tottenham. Not back to Tottenham, but talked about Tottenham earlier. Pau Torres to Tottenham. Obviously, Bastoni was the first choice, but he's now going to be staying in Milan, according to his agent. He's binned him off. 60 million euro release clause. Pat, would you pay it?
Probably not. Like, it's quite rare that a centre back is worth that. What's really weird as well is like how Conte is going to want to use his defenders, because the person putting up most defensive actions at Spurs this season has been Romero, right? Like, Romero is really that
an
defender.
Insane amount.
Romero is the see ball, get ball defender. So if you want a more reserved guy to play alongside him and do the distribution, then Torres could maybe do that, because Torres has really low defensive actions, but really high press resistance and good passing. But he's been playing in quite a conservative team, Villarreal, so you don't really know whether he can do other things. I don't know. I guess it just seems strange to me. I think, is this guy going to complement Romero?
Very good on the ball, isn't he?
Or is he going to try and play the way Romero plays and do it really badly? I don't pay 60 million.
If you look at how he's used Ben Davis in that back three where it's gone, Romero, I think Eric Dyer is definitely going to be pivotal for Conte as well as that sort of holding man. And then Ben Davis has almost been that sort of distributor that looks to sometimes get forward a little bit and is very much an on-the-ball player for the back three anyway. I think it does fit quite well, especially as he's a left-footed centre-back, which is hard to find in the market right now. I actually quite like Torres to Tottenham. I think that balance is lovely with Romero, Torres the ball player, and Eric Dyer as the sort of just heads everything, sticks his face in front of everything.
He passes very, very well. Like, if you want a guy to, as you said, distribute it, he is fantastic.
And he carries the ball lovely.
But his defensively, like.
But Conte will get the defensive aspect out of him.
He's also.
You could stick me centre back.
I wouldn't worry about it. Yeah. It's more about the fit than it is about like ability.
I also think he's very immobile, like really immobile, and in the Premier League, like. That can be a disaster. And for 60 million, like you do sit there and you go, okay, well, then how much is it? Like, if I was to go and find out about De Vrij, if I wanted to go and find out about Skriniar, like I'd maybe look at those kind of guys as well and think about it too. I think,
but he clearly wants a left-footed player there, doesn't he? He had Bastoni at Inter Milan playing on that left-hand side that was very successful. He's used Ben Davis consistently throughout the season. He clearly wants a left-footed centre-back on the left-hand side. So I think those options in the market are so thin that if you want that, I think you might have to pay a bit of a premium to get a player of the quality of Pau Torres. Because I do think with his ball distribution, alongside Conte's ability to just make players into beasts defensively, he'll be a top option for Spurs.
Yeah, it'd be fine. I would sign it. It's not going to be a problem. It's not going to be a problem. It's just like, how much money do Spurs have? Like, how much have they spent on Perisic's wages? How much are they going to spend on this guy? Like, I don't know. I don't know.
£150 million investment.
Yeah, but that doesn't necessarily mean £150 million that you've got to spend this summer. Like, an investment in the club isn't quite the same as like we now have all of that at the disposal of the manager, and especially not when it comes to wages. So like Perisic, it looks like they're really dropping a lot on his wages in the next 2 years. That's not necessarily a problem.
Because he's free.
Not necessarily a problem, but I don't know if they have enough to do this. Maybe to bulk up the midfield, maybe to get another rotation forward, maybe to think about a new keeper in the long term. I know they've got Forster in, but there are things that need to be done at Spurs, and I'm not sure that 60 million on Torres.
So you're a swerve?
Not necessarily. I think if they sign him, I think it'll be great. Like, their defense is already looking pretty good. I just don't think that. Yeah, I don't spend 60 mil.
Okay, so you're a swerve. What are you?
They need a guy in there. They need to get a guy in. They keep getting linked to. They need to get the deal done. So sure, I think it's sign it. Why not?
We'll fly through a few of these then. We've got Renato Sanchez to Milan. Yeah, verbal agreement reached. 18 million euro fee.
Sure. Yeah. Fine.
Obviously, Cassier's leaving as well, isn't he?
Yeah, I think
the midfield options are nice then at Milan, aren't they?
Yeah, Benatia, Tonali. It's a fun midfield. And like when Sanchez is at his best, like he's so amazing to watch. Like he's such a beautiful footballer when he's fit and he's on it. But it's how often is he fit and on it? Like sometimes he'll play 50% of the games in a season. Sometimes he'll play 90. Sometimes he'll play 20.
Yeah,
like it really depends.
So sign.
Yeah, how much was the fee?
18 mil.
Yeah, I think that's quite solid. I'm surprised actually not more clubs have maybe tried to buy it.
I'd do that.
Sign. Next one, Mane to Bayern. They've had 2 bids rejected by Munich. First one about 20 million, then 30 million, and Liverpool want 40 million. What do we think? It's a very interesting move, this, isn't it? Because it's being very publicly driven by Julian Nagelsmann, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Bayern obviously, like, Mane has come out and has essentially said he wants to leave. Like, you don't make this much of a thing out of something as well if you're not wanting to leave. He's given his all to Liverpool. Like, he's won the Premier League, he's won the Champions League. Like, he's been fantastic for them. And we've seen Liverpool with the Nunez stuff, with the with Diaz, with all these guys. Like, they've got guys to kind of replace him if needed. So I think from his point of view, you can understand it. And I think if you get the right fee, like a respectable fee, it doesn't have to be crazy. Would I pay 40 million? The other thing, who's they got at the moment, Bayern? They've got, obviously, no Lewandowski. Leroy Sané, who is hating his time there.
Looks like you're going to get Kalvin in.
Yeah, so they've got 3. They've still got Thomas Müller as well, who kind of can still play wherever you need him to do. Yeah, I think he's not necessarily that. I think he's just turned 30, Mane. You can easily get another 3 years out of him of high performance.
Well, the back end of this season, he was absolutely ridiculous. Pat, would you do it?
I'd sign
40 mil?
I'd sign him.
1 year left on his deal. Would you not just... There is an argument, potentially, could you just wait 1 more year and get him for free?
But they need someone to replace Lewandowski now. That's the idea, right?
So you would play Mane through the middle, would you?
I wouldn't buy Mane, but
so
yeah.
Would you swerve?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, why?
Because it's quite a long-term, expensive commitment to a player who is probably approaching the downside in his career. Like, don't get me wrong, because he's been so quick and so strong, he's likely to stay above average in those regards, and obviously he's going to the Bundesliga, which is a weaker league. So if he just plays through the middle, he's going to score a ton of goals. But we're talking about people like Gabby Jesus being available for very reasonable fees. I think that there are alternatives in the market. I don't know why they're so fixated on this one guy when people like Sterling might be available. You know, it's somebody he's worked with before. Like it looks like Chelsea could sell a couple of guys who Bayern might be interested in. I think there are other options. I'm fine with it. If he goes, it'll be great. I just think that it's a lot of money for a guy of his age. I'm not sure I do that.
And what's the goal here? I think you've got to think, what's the goal here? Bayern are going to win the Bundesliga. They win it every year, 10 years in a row. They're going to win the Bundesliga even without Lewandowski, probably. Like, are they signing Mane to win the Champions League? And does that tip him over the line at 40 mil?
Probably not.
I'm not sure it does either. So do you then think that money's better spent future-proofing the forward line by signing a player like Gabby Jesus, or by competing for Darwin Nunez,
beefing up the midfield?
Yeah, well, they've got Gravenberch for the door as well, haven't they?
To be fair, they've still got Musiala as well, Kingsley Coman.
Yeah,
still a Bayern Munich player.
They've signed Mazraoui as well, haven't they?
Mazraoui, yeah, like they are being smart, and they have got young signings in there.
I'm on the fence here. I would sign, but I think that they need to. Even with Mane coming through the door, a player like Kalvin, if Lewandowski goes out, I'm not sure Mane as the direct.
I think it's 40 mil for Bayern as well is a lot of money. Like, they don't spend huge numbers realistically, so that's a lot of money to commit to.
Yeah, they rarely do. I think Luka Hernandez was what?
He was like
rare, wasn't he? Yeah. Okay, I would sign.
Sure,
sign. And you're right, swerve, aren't you on that one?
Yeah, just about.
Just about. Right, we're gonna have to fly through some of these. Very quick ones. Jules Kounde to Chelsea.
Yeah, we need any defender. You can play for
at 65 mil.
Yeah, much better than the 85 that was last season. 65 million euros, isn't it? Which is about 50 million pounds. Like, I think that's much. Again, stupid in long term because we've let go of Tomori, etc., etc. But yeah, I think we have to sign.
Any worries about that 5'11", 5'10"?
I don't get too like Thiago Silva's 6 foot. And he's very, very smart with the way he defends. Like, if he's smart, then sure. But you could also I can see it possibly going wrong as well. But in the 3 at the back, like, it's less rare. Yeah. But if we ever move to a 4 at the back,
Aspie and Reece James on the right hand side of the centre back combo, they're not fucking 6'8", are they?
Exactly. I don't think it's too bad. But Chelsea have been scouting this guy for a long time now. Like, and we're still after him. So I'd like to think it'd work well.
Pat,
sure.
Sign even at 65 mil.
Probably not at 65 no.
But you just said earlier, like, you think most defenders for 60 odd isn't probably a smart one, but that's at the going rate for a young one.
But you're in a horrible position, though, because
everyone knows we're desperate.
But there are people like Akanji, right, who's been offered around, and like you could test Arsenal's resolve with Saliba. That'd be kind of interesting. Like, I don't know. I think that there are a few probably options that could be had. I'm just. Whatever.
We've got to get about 3 in. We've got to get about 3
but that's all the more reason not to spend 65. Like, just leave it. Go another year. Get in Botman, get in somebody else, and just see how it goes.
Let's talk about Botman then to Newcastle, because apparently a £40 million fee has been agreed, and the player has also kind of said, yeah, I'll come. It doesn't seem like Milan are going to get that one done. Maybe their focus has moved to other areas, or they just can't compete with Newcastle's wages potentially. What do we think about this one? Botman at 40 mil.
It's it's much better than some of the boys they got at the moment, that's for sure. Like, I think Clark is still a Newcastle player.
What do you think, Botman and Dan Burn as a centre-back combo?
Not something I would have ever imagined. Well, they play three at the back, don't they? I swear.
No, I don't think so.
Oh my god, I'm crazy. Oh, maybe.
Because they had Matty Target as a left-back. I don't think he was playing wing-back.
Okay, maybe it was like one game they went.
They've got that deal done. So, I mean, Botman, though, does want to play as in that left centre-back role, doesn't he?
Well, yeah, that's weird, right?
And so does Dan Burn.
2 lefties.
It might be better with 3 at the back.
Maybe that's what they're aiming for. I do like the Botman deal, to be honest with you. I think even at £40 million, his age and profile is better than some of the options that I've seen them building. I'd rather spend 40 mil on Botman at 22 than 40 mil on Diego Carlos, which they did in January.
Yeah. Their transfers so far that they look like they've completed and going to complete have been really smart. Like they haven't done a thing where they just go and splash 80 million on some old guy who's not really. Like the Bruno signing was fantastic. He's been brilliant for half the season. So yeah,
and trying to get Gabby as well from Leverkusen. Like,
exactly, they're smart, man.
This is yeah. If you want to stop being a relegation level club, then buying players who are much better is something that I recommend. And so, this is the guy who's good.
Yeah, we're all signs that one. Then final one, because we have been talking for a long old time, is Scamacca to Arsenal.
This is coming to me, I see.
40 million euros, Pat.
If it's 40 million euros, I'd consider it. I don't think I'd do it. I think
big old boy.
I think that Jesus is gettable. So you go for Jesus. He should be your top target. If you want a big physical presence, someone like Kalajdzic might be available out of Stuttgart. I maybe go for something like that as well. I like Scamacca. He's had good numbers 2 seasons in a row now, though last season it was only just kind of over the 1,000-minute mark, like 1,200 or something, which is what you like to see to get an understanding. He's not a shot monster, but he gets a decent number of shots. He's a reasonably hard worker. I don't think he's especially technical. Like when I see him, I'm not sure that if he's going to come in, he's not going to come in to do that Lacazette role where he's facilitating the players around him. And in that regard, I think, well, if you're keeping Nketiah is your guy who's going to work really hard, knows where the goal is, but isn't really, much more than that. I'm not sure I do this. I think that if Arsenal can't get Jesus, I think that they should go and get somebody who's like a wide guy who can play through the middle in the Nkunku mold. I'm not sure that I just think, okay, who's the next forward on our hit list? But good age, good sort of forward for somebody. I'm just not convinced that somebody is.
Do you not think though that you are going to try and sign a player as well as Gabby Jesus in that forward role, like Gabby Jesus +1? Like if Scamacca was to come in alongside Gabby Jesus.
Yeah, but I think that if you want, and I understand that if you're going to get Jesus, you should probably also get somebody who's a physical presence. Yeah. Which is why I'm saying Kalajdzic. He's a massive guy. He's like 6'4", 6'5".
Yeah, so he's Scamacca though, isn't he? 6'4".
Yeah, but actually his numbers aren't quite as good as Kalajdzic's, and I think for this price, Arsenal aren't a team who can spend 40 mil for somebody who's a bench option. If they do that, they're going to end up in exactly the same situation as when they had Lacazette and Aubameyang. Arsenal don't have that money. They'd be much better off spending more money in midfield or maybe beefing up some of their depth options on the wings, for example, than going and getting somebody who has to play as a centre forward. Because if he's going to play, he's going to play through the middle, and that's the only place he's going to play. I don't really get it. Like, I'd get a guy who could play with everybody else.
So you're a swerve on this one?
Yeah, but I think he'll be a good player for somebody.
I don't particularly mind it. I think having him as an option, I agree that it's quite a substantial amount of money as a bench option, but I think you do need that physical presence through the middle of Arsenal. And I think Scamacca would be a very good fit, but at 40 million. And 40 million has supposedly been rejected as well. So it's like, does that mean it's then 50 or 55?
If Arsenal sign him, I think they'll be getting a good player, but they'll have to reconsider what their plan is. Because Jesus and Scamacca are extremely different types.
Yes, totally different types of player.
Yeah.
I would probably be at sign.
A lot of money for a bench option, in my opinion. So,
Swerve. All right, there we have it then. That was our sign or swerve to come up with by Patrick Van Straan. That's superb, actually, mate. I think we should wrap it up there because I really do need a glass of water quite badly. I don't know whether you guys have got anything to add before we go.
Not that I know of. What was personal question? Go-to curry order. Oh, God. Can't think about it. You'll be sick.
Whatever the house special is.
House special.
Usually go for a chef special. something like that.
Do you
Yeah.
ever go to curry orders?
I like spicy food, but I actually really enjoy korma. But
Yeah,
I'll
like-
do whatever. I'll do whatever. I'll
Yeah.
do whatever. I quite like it. What was the one I had? Oh, I had a really good one, but I can't remember his name. So it's
That's
no point.
class.
So it's no point.
Content.
There's no point.
Yeah, that is
Content.
great content. Yeah, I don't really get the people who seem to take it as like a challenge. I think are so stupid.
Oh, yeah.
Like because the korma is still great. Like butter chicken is great.
Really
No,
nice.
but it's not though, is it? It's not.
I like
It doesn't
creamy.
Taste, it doesn't taste nearly as good as some of the actual curries like on the menu. Like butter chicken is like
Yeah, but-
I can imagine the chef should go, oh, f***ing butter chicken.
Yeah, but you
stick
do.
it in
Yeah, but
there."
you do realize that curry is kind of bullshit anyway. Like this word curry that we use for like this idea of curry is like a manufactured one.
Yeah, that's fine. But do you, like, if you go to an Indian restaurant and there's like serious
But you're-
chef's dishes on there that he's obviously
But you're
worked really
already-
hard
but
with, and
you're
you
al-
order a butter chicken,
But you're already getting like an anglicised version of whatever you're getting.
not necessarily.
And isn't it true that like,
Some very good, like, authentic curry houses in London.
but relatively few actually. Like, and interestingly, aren't most Indian restaurants in the UK run by Bangladeshis?
I think
Like,
they
so
are,
it's
yeah.
actually slightly different. Like, it's the same way that if you go to a Japanese restaurant in Paris, it's almost certainly going to be run by people from Southeast Asia, like Cambodians, Vietnamese. But anyway, I don't know, but I get a paratha. Whatever I get a paratha with it, because paratha is like the best of the Indian breads, and all the Indian breads are phenomenal.
Oh, yeah,
they are.
But the
Bread's my favourite bit.
But the paratha, the flaky buttery.
No, I
Oh, garlic
naan.
garlic naan's good fun.
All right, there we go. Yeah, if you enjoyed this, make sure you go and watch some of the other Sunday Vibes content that we've done, put with Daily throughout the week. Thanks very much for watching.